Law enforcement, the boys, the gals in blue. There's a very interesting audio cut we have here from 911 in Columbus. Very short audio cut, illustrative of where America is today. Shad, play cut 11, please.
That's a protest. They're riding their motorcycles popping wheelings.
Yep. We were told by our mayor to stand down. So the mayor has given them full reins of the street.
They're surrounding my car. They're blocking my traffic. The police need to protect me.
That was the dispatcher saying, the mayor has told us to stand down. What is it like to be a Leo, to be a law enforcement officer? You start because of what? Why do you walk down that path? Why do you go to the academy? Was it just because your father was a sworn peace officer? Was it because of your uncle? Was it because those are the shows that you enjoyed the most on television as a child? Protect and Serve resonated with you, and you thought that you could do some good. And so you took the test, and you passed. You took the physical, and you aced that. You ended up in the academy. You met people of all hue, all background from around the country, and you passed with flying colors as well. And then one day, your cadet tabs were replaced with your officer's insignia. You were handed your badge, your gun, and your duty belt. But in America, that wasn't enough. You also were issued a bulletproof piece of body armor. Why? Because that traffic stop for a broken taillight could just as easily end in not a citation, but you bleeding out on the side of the highway. Over the next few years, you went up the ranks, you progressed in your career. You started on the hard shifts, the graveyard shifts, the middle of the night. You'd get that call out at 2 a.m. to go to somebody's house and find that there'd been a suicide, and you were the person who would have to console the member of the family who found that dead body. There were the awful, awful instances of when a child was killed. Not just the drive-bys in downtown, but when a mother or a father simply had enough, or in some drug-addled fugue decided to smother that baby or bash its skull in simply because, well, they didn't have any patience anymore. And you were the first officer on the scene. You were the person who had to see that child lying there, dead. Never hurt anyone. An innocent soul extinguished because, well, just because. Then the demonstrations began. Strange group of, well, as far as you could tell, privileged, mostly white, middle-class protesters who would organize themselves, hide their faces, walk down the street, chanting what? No peace, no justice. With placards held high saying, defund the police. And one night, it was clear they had decided to take down a statue, not to some Confederate general or slave owner, but just some dead white guy who somehow represented what? America? Is that why that statue had to be toppled? Or some writer, some author, some person who represented hateful Western civilization? And you were activated, not to get in your patrol car, your radio car, but to put on your shin guards, your elbow pads, be issued a perspex shield and a riot helmet and a baton, to be the last line of defense for our history as a nation, to stop the rioters from defacing things that had stood there sometimes for decades, sometimes for more than 100 years, that no one had found offense with, not even when a black man had been president, not once, but been re-elected to twice serve in the White House. Nobody forced you, nobody told you that you had to be on riot detail then. But now, suddenly, that statue was causing quote-unquote pain, was offensive to minorities, allegedly, even though 90% of the screaming rioters were white, were clearly well-to-do, well-educated white Americans. White Americans who would scream at you, who would come to within 3 inches of your face with the spittle flying out of their mouths as they hurled invectives at you. Words that, if you'd mentioned them once as a child, your mother would have clapped you round the ears so violently it would have rung for minutes. But then these privileged, safe, quote-unquote snowflakes, they used them with alacrity. They threw the insults in your face, and you just had to stand there. And then there was the worst one of all. It wasn't an F word. It wasn't a classic swear word. It's when one of these so-called protesters or rioters came up to you and called you a race traitor. Why? Because of the pigmentation in your skin. Your mother, your father were black. That didn't mean you were a victim. They didn't expect you to live your life in some kind of funk because of your skin color. You were an American, proud to wear the badge of your department, proud to say that phrase that some thought corny or cliched. I want to protect and serve. I just want to do some good. And now, because of my skin color, I'm spat at and called a race traitor by somebody who's never experienced anything untoward in their life, who's lived a life of indulgence, of entitlement, but now, because they've been told for years, starting in high school and then in college, that America is the problem. Americans are the oppressors. And if you disagree with the chants of Black Lives Matter, if you dare to disagree with the conventional wisdoms of the so-called elite and the radicals they are in bed with, the Antifa movement that are more fascist than any other organization in America today, well then you are the race traitor. Who would be a policeman now? What will happen to America when not enough people say, I want to protect and serve. I just want to do some good. where will those good men and women go? That's where the left, that's where the defund police Democrats have brought us to today.